Black Mirror was basically the show that inspired me to write about TV. Indeed, on TVObsessive.com you can find my analyses of each episode of the series through season 5, including 2 articles on Bandersnatch, where I did my best to work through every possible permutation of that interactive episode in the second one, right? To kind of work through everything that one might experience. Maybe I missed some things. I suppose I say all of this to try and demonstrate my bona fides as a fan of Black Mirror before I proceed to seriously question the merit of this most recent season, season 6. I'm not writing this as someone who's a casual fan of the show. I'm writing as someone who's thought a lot about it. And while I, of course, like some episodes better than others, I've never found myself tempted to say an episode wasn't worth watching. Until season 6. That's not a blanket claim I'm making, to be clear. I think that Jonah's Awful manages to present some compelling problems worth thinking about. Beyond the Sea is a fundamentally well put together entry with some superb acting, and I enjoyed it. Demon 79 is a lot of fun. Loch Henry almost comes close to hitting on a critique of our obsession with true crime, and though it fails, you could still fruitfully think about what it might have been. Maisie Day is the only one I really don't think is worth anyone's time. Yet, even in its best moments, I couldn't help but feel like something was off about this season of Black Mirror. It never quite felt like I was watching the show I love. Perhaps part of this relates to the settings we're given. Beyond the Sea is in an alternate 1969. Demon 79 is set in 1979. Maisie Day is set in 2006. Loch Henry would seem to be present day, but the location is remote enough that phones don't work. Only Jonah's Awful feels like it's exploring our contemporary relationship with technology, and even that one kind of sidelines questions about the tech involved. As I watched all of these episodes, I found myself working on a thesis that I feel a certain hesitancy about presenting, which is either fitting or ironic, because it's a thesis about the same kind of hesitancy on the part of Black Mirror's creators. I think that fundamentally they were afraid to truly grapple with the problems of our post-COVID world because they didn't want to give fodder to forces they oppose. And neither do I. That's the last thing I want to do, but it would be dishonest to suggest, and there's nothing in the past few years that's presented dystopian possibilities. Indeed, it was all too common in 2020 to see someone suggesting that we were living in a Black Mirror episode, and Charlie Brooker himself said things along these lines. More precisely, he suggested that no one wanted new Black Mirror during such distressing times, because it certainly wasn't going to make anyone feel better. And while I can't disagree with the latter part of that sentiment, I've always disagreed with the first part. Black Mirror has never been about making us feel better. It's been about making us feel worse, but in significant ways. And that's the thing. Nothing about season 6 feels significant. Even Jonah's Awful, which I think is the closest the season comes to feeling like proper Black Mirror, largely feels like it's telling us things we already know. Yes, we're at constant risk of being taken up and taken over by forces of representation beyond our control, and it's terrifying, but it's not for nothing. They actually read someone on Reddit saying that they would just go about their business and trust the show would be very boring. The episode is good, but it doesn't cut you. Nothing in Black Mirror Season 6 does damage. Nothing makes us question ourselves like the best entries in the series have done. White Dare and Black Museum interrogated our desire for retribution. The entire history review explored how jealousy and paranoia could be ramped up by technological innovation. USS Callister and San Junipero, along with White Christmas, made us ask whether copies of ourselves could fit the bill of being persons. Smithereens and Hated in the Nation interrogated dark possibilities in relation to social media. and so on and so forth. What does any episode in Black Mirror Season 6 do when it comes down to it? Maybe Jonah's Awful asks us to examine our relationship with quote-unquote content, and maybe Loch Henry hits that point a bit too, but it feels more like a wink than a punch in the gut. Beyond the Sea gives us a nice retro-futuristic story that almost manages to hit on something about jealousy and toxic masculinity, but doesn't quite do that. It doesn't quite explore the motivations of the cult it presents, whose anti-technological ideology might have been interesting to examine, and it doesn't show us the violence. You might claim that it didn't need to, but the fact remains that I wanted the episode to punch me in the gut harder, and it held back. Demon 79 ends up feeling almost too smart for itself. It fails to give us a murder that would have felt cathartic and just. It could have examined the aftermath of that and the uncertainty of its overall premise, but instead it tells us its premise was real, the world ends, and that's okay, I guess. Maisie Day presents an incredibly tired argument against paparazzi, doubles down on it, and then just ends. And what is going on with the sudden addition of supernatural elements to Black Mirror? A demon, a werewolf? All of this might be fine if the surrounding context felt sufficiently in line with the spirit of the series, but it truly is not. If you're trying to tell yourself that this is all good Black Mirror, you're deluding yourself. It might be good enough TV, but it's not what we should expect from this series. Everything feels toothless because it is. Maybe that's because Charlie Brooker fundamentally ran out of ideas, but I think it might be because he was afraid to explore the ideas that our world presents right now in an honest way. I hesitate to give examples of things Black Mirror might have explored because I think I share that fear, but surely there are things that could have been mined from thoughts about biometrics, working from home, or the fear of others brought on by the pandemic. If Black Mirror isn't going to interrogate aspects of our contemporary world by pushing them into spaces that make us deeply uncomfortable, then I'm not sure what it's doing, whether from the kind of fear I suggest, which I sympathize with, or for other reasons. Season 6 just doesn't feel like what this show is supposed to be. If you want to make a show about demons and werewolves, that's cool, I guess. I like Supernatural as much as the next guy. But Black Mirror is supposed to make me feel bad about myself. It's supposed to make me feel bad about being human. So if you're tempted to come at me for what I'm saying here, just ask yourself, did any of these episodes do that? And if you think they did, lay it out for me in the comments.